Good morning and welcome to ICAPS Models 1 and Model 2 in Introduction. This is part of the Transitions Academy webinar series. We're happy that you're here today. Your hosts are Bevan Gibson from the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center. She's our director here. Amy Julian, who's the director of the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, and Sarah Goldammer, your current speaker, who's an educational training specialist at the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center. Just so you know, a couple of housekeeping items. This is going to be recorded and archived, so if you want to listen again, I'm sure you will want to listen again because it'll be a lot of rich information, or if you want to share with colleagues. There are a few handouts for you that are available, this PowerPoint and a couple of planning documents, so you may want to download those to help you out. So just to kind of let you know, we're going to start out very generally talking about ICAPS IETs, and then go to more specifics, give you the information about what makes up an IET and specifically ICAPS in Illinois, and then we'll have time for questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the question or the chat box. But let's get started right now with a poll. Let's see who's here today. And our question is, if you have an ICAPS IET program at your currently running. We'll give you just a minute. All right, get your poll, your answer in, because I'm going to close it. All right, let me show this to you. All right, so you can see that 54% of you say yes, 15% say no, 8% currently have one, but no students are enrolled, and 23% are currently in development. Very good. All right. So thank you. Let's move on. So let me ask you, this is our general question, in your mind, in simple words. By simple, I just mean basic. If someone says, "What is an ICAPS IET program in Illinois?" How would you answer that? If you put a couple of answers in the chat, we'll take a look and see what people think. Okay, not seeing any yet. Maybe it's too early on a Thursday. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Elizabeth. Helping a student earn his or her high school equivalency and prepare for a good job. Nice answer. And James, thank you. Jane Black says, "And something really complicated, LOL." Thanks for that, Jane. So hopefully everybody out there will kind of agree with you. And hopefully, by 11 o'clock, we'll have shed some light to make it less complicated. Okay, Sarah, thank you. Sarah Escatel says, "Team teaching approach focusing on career, academic developing, resulting in a certificate." Thank you. Let's see if we've got one more before we go on. It's always helpful to see what the field thinks before we move on. Okay, so what we're thinking so far is that we're helping our students out. It's something that's good for our students. It's going to lead towards, as Sarah said, a certificate, a good job, and hopefully focusing on their career academic development. All right, so let me move on. So here is the actual definition. ICAPS it stands for Integrated Career and Academic Preparation System. And just to make sure that we're clear, ICAPS is the implementation of IET, the Integrated Education and Training Model. So IET is a WIOA term. And in Illinois, we're very fortunate because we have that specific ICAPS model. And the reason we're fortunate is because we've been doing ICAPS for years before the feds told us we needed to do this. ICAPS aims to provide an integrated pathway in career and technical education, that's CTE, for college credit, program certificate opportunities for adult education and literacy, and that's for our students that lack basic skills. So I won't read all these slides, but I am going to give you the rest of this information because it's very important that we have that foundational information. Through ICAPS program, students work to complete their high school equivalency while they're co-enrolled in credit CTE courses and certificates through an integrated instructional model. And in adult ed, we're going to supplement that with support courses. We're going to give them comprehensive student support services, and it's augmented by team teaching that includes CTE faculty and basic skills instructors, or adult ed instructors. The model provides career pathway, employment opportunities for students while enabling their transition into additional post-secondary certificate degree programs. That's a lot, but you can see how that would be good for our students, right? So let's look at WIOA. The definition is IET, which again is the more generic term, is a service approach that provides adult education and literacy activities concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation activities and workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster for the purpose of educational and career advancement. We're going to come back to that contextually and concurrently again. So you guys know we've been doing adult education and literacy activities for a long time, but we need to be doing them integrated with workforce prep activities and workforce training. So let's take a look at all of those. Required component one is adult education and literacy activities. So again, hopefully this audience knows what adult education is, you know what literacy is. Working across there, we've got workplace adult education and literacy activities. We've got family literacy activities, EL acquisition activities, IEL, CE, and then workforce prep activities and integrated education and training. So we'll talk about all of those, but I want to put a plug in at this point that Bevan and I are going to be doing a session next week, Friday, on February 1st, on workforce prep activities. So I think one of the things that hopefully, even if you have a current ICAPS program, is to start thinking about how can I be integrating pieces of this in all of the adult ed, all of the ESL classes, all the literacy classes. Everybody needs to be getting some components of this from day one, whether they're actually in a team-taught environment or whether they're in adult education classes. So if this is a novel thought to you, or if it's a thought you've had but you weren't sure how to move forward, I really encourage you to sign up for next week's session on February 1st at 10 o'clock. Have your teacher sign up as well. And we're going to give you all kinds of resources to help you think about how you can share that with your students. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Amy and let you talk about required component number 2.
Good morning, everyone. So required component number 2 of an ICAPS IET model would be workforce preparation activities. When we focus on workforce preparation activities, we're really looking at activities, programs, or services designed to help the individual acquire a combination of basic academic skills. So when you're looking at this, I want you to be thinking about critical thinking skills, self-management skills, time management skills, organizational skills. I'm not going to read the whole slide to you, but all of those things that really go into that workforce preparation activities. A lot of these are done in the classroom, possibly as part of the support course or as part of the curriculum that you have within your ABE course. And so you're looking at providing the student with an understanding of not only the systems, but the skills that they're going to need to transition successfully into post-secondary or the workforce. And not only do we want them to be successful in transitioning in, but be successful when they get there, which goes back to those self-management, organizational skills, and how to utilize resources and what resources are available. Some example of workforce preparation activities include utilizing resources. How do they use the information once they get that information? What is the dynamic to work with others? Understanding that dynamic for our students is really important. Understanding really workplace etiquette is one of those things that come into play at this time. Understanding systems, transitioning skills, multitasking skills, and helping our students identify how really to prioritize what work is a priority for their employer, and having that directive to know to ask questions. And then other employability skills. So a lot of this, again, is going to be part of those essential employability skills that we talk about when we talk about the essential employability skills framework. So some of the things what you might already be doing to address this component, this is one of the areas that, as I said, a lot of it happens in the classroom. You're looking at that support class and also through your ABE classes. So what might you already be doing to address this component, and what could you add tomorrow? So what are those things that we could be focusing on? If you haven't seen, I'd like to introduce you to the Illinois Essential Employability Skills Framework. This framework was put together. We brought together a collection of individuals from around the state. Adult education was at the table, DCEO was at the table, CTE, the academic side of the house for the community colleges, the ROEs were representing the secondary system, and business, as well as chambers of commerce, came together and discussed what we needed, what was essential to not only getting the job, but keeping the job. What are those things that are going to help our students not only be successful to get in the door, but then not be terminated within the first 6 weeks or so? And you're really looking at personal ethic, work ethic, teamwork, and communication. And I'm very confident that most of you are already teaching these skills within your classrooms. One of the things that I think is important is to challenge our administrators, challenge our teachers, challenge our students to identify them while we're teaching them. So when we start a class on time and we insist that students come on time and are prepared, what essential employability skill are we reinforcing by doing that work? What essential employability skills is highlighted when we talk about writing your resume, organizational skills, and all of these workforce preparation activities? I hope that's clear for everybody, and I'm going to hand it over for workforce training.
Hi, this is Bevan, and before we begin with the workforce training component number 3 of an ICAPS IET, I want to just kind of review just a minute what Sarah had talked about with the slide with the adult education literacy activities. It had workforce prep activities in a square, and then it also had IETs. It's important to realize, and Amy just did the workforce component, the actual workforce activities component, number 2 of an IET. Workforce or workplace activities is a component of an IET, but just doing workplace activities is actually an adult education activity. It falls under component number 1. If you just have a workplace activity class, that is not an IET. You have to have all 3 required components. And so that being said, we're going to look at required component number 3, which is workforce training. And workforce training is training that is specific for a specific occupation or an occupational cluster, and it can be any one of the training services that WIOA defines. And let's look at what those are. Occupational skills training. Occupational skills training includes training for non-traditional employment by gender, like a welding class possibly for female students. On-the-job training. On-the-job training, OJT is what they call it in Department of Commerce. An example of that would be apprenticeships. And it's not just an apprenticeship that you just come up with. It's actually an apprenticeship that is on the list that is at the AJC. They actually have lists of apprenticeships, and so it would be a great time to partner for workforce training with those kinds of things that are there, or within a community college that possibly might have some apprenticeships already set up. Incumbent worker training is another one, a workforce training piece, and it's basically people that already have jobs and that they're training. This is something that we probably wouldn't do as much of, is to bump up their skills. Combined workforce training and related instruction is co-op education programs whenever they think about early school leavers or within the high school setting. Private sector training programs. This may be something that within an ICAPS Model 2 that you might look at to connect for your training component. If you are not at a community college, if you are in a community-based organization, you might want to look around to see if there are some private sector training programs within your area that you could link up to for your workforce training component. Skill upgrading and retraining also linked to the incumbent worker. Entrepreneurial training, people want to start their own business and they want to actually go out there, need to learn how to do taxes, need to learn how to do their books, need to know the ins and outs of running a business. We are actually currently working on developing an entrepreneurial IET format, so look for things to come. Transitional jobs is another thing, and that again is with the Department of Commerce and the AJC. Job readiness training, that is in combination with the activities that we're 1 through 8. So job readiness training is it's not workplace activities, but it's job readiness training. AEL activities include ESL, ELA, and IETs. This is something that is currently being looked at by the Advisory Council. We have a lot of people that are getting like EL Civics money, and so they are the $243 for EL Civics needs to be concurrently or in combination with activities up there. So if you're looking at an IET for your EL Civics students, this is how this works. So it has to be, again, concurrent and contextualized. Customized training with commitment from employers or a group of employers. This is something that is a huge time commitment and is not probably something that we would do, where you actually have to design a training with an employer in mind. A fun fact of ICAPS IET is that the law says that the 3 components of an integrated education and training IET must be provided concurrently as well as contextually and integrated. They cannot be provided sequentially to be classified as an IET. In other words, you can't say, okay, today we're going to do HSE, tomorrow we're going, in the next hour we're going to do workplace activities, and the next hour we're going, and this afternoon we're going to go to training. They have to be provided all together. So that being said, let's start looking at the Illinois model for ICAPS and IET. Amy?
Thank you, Bevan. So when looking at the Illinois model for ICAPS IET, we have different phases to this, and that's very intentional. We have the pre-IET phase, and then we also have what we call the ICAPS IET phase. And as Sarah has said, this is something that we've been doing in the state, and those of you, I think we had 54% of you said you already have an IET or ICAPS program going on. So we're good. You're pretty much aware of all of this. When you look at Model A of is a pre-bridge, or Model B is a bridge. So those are components looking at how we're prepping for the ICAPS IET models. And then within ICAPS IET, we have Model 1 and Model 2. The big distinction between the two is what is the end result of progressing through that program. If it's ending in a college recognized credential, it would be Model 1. And if it's ending in a certificate or industry recognized credential, not affiliated with a college recognized credential, it would be Model 2. So let's explore this a little deeper. So ICAPS Model 1 is, if you look at these components here, it's going to be contextualized and integrated. Very important. You're going to have contextualization with the bridge and the pre-bridge, but you also have that integrated component with the ICAPS IET. You're going to have career development and workforce preparation. You're going to look at those transition services, building on those workforce preparation components, looking at technology skills, employability skills, and comprehensive student support services. So that's also where that support class comes in. In addition to just the class, you're also looking at what you can do to assist that student with those barriers that we're trying to assist them in overcoming. Big determining factor here is the college credit bearing career and technical education is your workforce training. So that's where you're going to look at that component. Also with those work-based learning and pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships are all encapsulated in that as well. You have shared learning objectives, and then the team-taught environment, which is one of the essential components of an ICAPS IET program, and then that integrated support class. This will result in your HSE, your industry recognized credential, employment opportunity, transferable college credit, that's a big point there, and then also stackable college credentials. So we're looking at students coming out of both the ICAPS IET models being able to have that opportunity to not just have that be terminal, but to have those be stackable credentials. So Model 1, keep in mind, college credit bearing career and technical education, and ends up or results in a transferable college credit. Looking at Model 2, Model 2 is very similar. You see the contextualized and integrated curriculum there, the career development, workforce training, transition services. That first whole column is exactly identical. Then we kind of change up when we're looking at technical workforce training. So that can be done in a number of ways. It can be done in partnership with your unions. It can be done in partnerships with your community-based organizations. But the result is going to be an industry-recognized credential, not necessarily a college-bearing credential. We still have the shared learning objectives, team-taught environment, again, in both Model 1 and Model 2, and then non-credit articulation agreements with community college are possible for credit. So we're not ruling it out, but it is possible. Model 2 will result in your HSE, your industry-recognized credential, and then employment opportunities. We do like to see, as it states in there, opportunities for stackable credentials, but again, that's not a required component for Model 2. So what does workforce training look like when you're talking about Model 1? And Bevan has walked through with us what workforce training looks like. And those of you who are part of that CTE community, you heard a lot of terms that we're very familiar with: internships, apprenticeships, work-based learning opportunities. We've been doing work-based learning in career and tech ed since the 80s. Yes, since the 80s. So look at those opportunities for your students. Job shadowing. I want you to think about other opportunities that you have at your college and how those can work to benefit your students. We do have one of the models that exist in the state is the early school leaver model, and I know several of you are aware of that because that is an IET as well, and we insist on job shadowing, and we're also very resourceful in looking at how that job shadowing and work-based learning can take place. So don't be afraid to think a little outside the box on that. Don't be afraid to bring in some community resources and assisting you with your workforce training component with your career and tech ed. So what does workforce training look like for Model 2? So those of you who are looking at Model 2, you're looking at that on-the-job training or apprenticeship. You're looking at private sector programs and then entrepreneurial training. It's very similar. I mean, they're not going to be distinctly different because they are both workforce training, but what the different factors are: what is that end result for the student? What is that student working towards, and which model are they defining themselves in? Any additional questions? Or Bevan or Sarah? So the questions that you might want to ask are, what potential workforce partners do you have? So think outside the box with that. Think about who you are working with currently and what are other partners that you need to be developed. I also encourage you, and I think I'm kind of tramping on over into some resources, but I also want to be sure you're considering, especially with Model 1, you have access to the CTE advisory committees. Every program, every CTE program has an advisory committee. Are you partnering with those individuals on that advisory committee? Also, you are all part of an LWIA. Are you partnering with those businesses that have invested in their LWIA or in your LWIA? If you're not, I consider you consider approaching those individuals, because if you have businesses that are willing to work with the LWIA, they also could be great opportunities for internships, apprenticeship, work-based learning opportunities, and job shadowing that'll benefit all of your students.
Amy, can you hear us now?
Yes.
I'm sorry, we lost our connection for a second. So, all right. So I'm going to move on, because you might be thinking of what kinds of assistance do I have to help plan or to enhance what we're already doing. So one of the things we want to tell you about is the ICAPS IET planning template. It's one of the handouts that you have available for you. And this was created with the assistance of many programs across the state who have created and implemented successful ICAPS programs. So nobody in the state of Illinois should be starting with a blank sheet of paper or a blank screen. You have this to help you work through. There's also the ICAPS planning notes that you can use, which is kind of a logic model that helps you work through what's available. Other resources that are available for you is the ICAPS website, and we're very excited to share that with you because the ICAPS website, again, is full of best practices and online training opportunities for you and for your teachers at your program. It starts from basically what is an ICAPS IET, how did it come about in the state of Illinois, how has it evolved over time. Then you can see from the front page of the ICAPS website that there are resources for team teachers. Again, those came from the field. These are tried and true resources. There's a few things that came from Washington State, but most of them are homegrown. There's a career navigator section, there's an administrator section, and then there's also some upcoming professional development resources for you. So if you've never looked at the ICAPS website before, I encourage you to go there. There's also, if you look at the very top right-hand side, is an ICAPS toolkit, which is all of those kind of pieces of what you need. Now, having said that, if you're doing something fabulous or even just pretty doggone good at your program, and you have a resource to share, please reach out to us and let us know that, because the only way that we can keep growing and enhancing this website with all these great resources is if you share. So share what you have, and occasionally I'll reach out to some of you, and if I ask you for resources, please be willing to share that, and we'll give you credit for it, but we want to put that on as well.
If you want to download these next 3 slides and blow them up, that's fine. You can do that from the PowerPoint on the presentation. But what I wanted to do is kind of go through and give you 3 examples of some programs that are doing ICAPS Model 1s right now. And I think the significant piece, Sarah referred to the template. One of the things is that when you're planning your ICAPS program, you need to make sure that they're getting at least 12 credit hours of college credit. And so if we go to look at Danville's, one of the things you have to do also is to actually spell out the entire career pathway from where your students can go on from there. As Amy said, it's to actually have a stackable certificate that then moves on up into the post-secondary realm. And so if we look at this, you don't be overwhelmed, because not all of this is an ICAPS program. There are only pieces of it that are an ICAPS program, and then it goes on to say what they could get in addition to what the certificate they're going to earn during the ICAPS program. The ICAPS program is the bottom portion of this. From the left-hand side, there's a first term and a second term, and it tells specifically what courses they will be working on during that first term, during the first term and second term. But in the meantime, they will also be, while they're working on a support-based contextualized support class, they'll have that with their ICAPS program. They'll be working on a GED course. They'll also then have their career and tech ed workforce training component. So the workforce prep class and the contextualized, because it's contextualized with workforce on that first term, then you go into the workforce training component, and they actually have a success in college class. They have a braking systems class during the first term. And the second term, they're working on job skills, and they're still having the support class. They're still working on GED or high school equivalency prep. That this program particularly uses GED. And so then they'll also be simultaneously, concurrently enrolled in steering and suspension class, as well as principles of air conditioning. And at the end, over to the right, they get a 12 credit hours and they'll get a fundamentals of automotive technology certificate. Then they can move on up, and that's where they go with the career pathway into getting an automotive technology certificate worth 33 credit hours, and then they can move on up into automotive technology all the way up until they get technical electives that they go up into. But those are the ICAPS program is actually the bottom pieces. And it's the same thing if we look at the next one. Their ICAPS program is along the bottom, and they get 15 credit hours to earn an office assistant basic certificate, which will then feed into business and office and business applications, and they can actually earn a medical administrative assistant certificate or a business support certificate. That is not during their ICAPS. That will advance. They are getting the stackable certificate at the bottom of office assistant basic certificate. They could then go to a lot of different places with that, but these are specifically 2 areas within that college that they actually have the possibility of moving forward. For the College of DuPage, they have a computer and internet working technologies career pathway. This is the whole pathway. This is not, again, the ICAPS program. The ICAPS program, again, is along the bottom, and they've split theirs into 5 terms, and it's a contextualized support class, and workforce prep is exemplified in there, as well as then their workforce training component tells what all they're going to be involved in and enrolled in simultaneously, concurrently, while they are actually enrolled in the adult ed and support classes, and ultimately earning a 12-hour internet working technician basic certificate. So that being said, it's an example so that you can follow if you're currently in development. Several of you said that you were currently in development. It's a guide that you could possibly use in seeing how you connect your ICAPS program, Model 1 in this case, to further career pathways. If you're doing a Model 2 ICAPS, then you would do basically the same thing, only that when they earn their workforce training piece there, what are they going to be where will they be able to go? They might be able to go to a community college to earn more, so it would be up to you to figure out how could they advance their skills beyond what you're offering in your ICAPS Model 2 program. So just as a guide for you guys to know how to do that.
All right, so we have gotten to the portion where we have shared most of the information that we have for you. And Amy's putting some information there. You can find additional resources. I mentioned the ICAPS website, and she's putting the link there for you. And of course, if you have questions now, put them in the chat box, the question box. Or if you have questions this afternoon or next week or next month, ICSPS and SIPDC are both here. We are very willing to work with you to answer questions, to help work you through your submission proposal to ICCB, or to help work through issues that you have. As I said at the very beginning, there's nobody in this state that should start from scratch. There are so many great models, there's so many great resources for you. So what we'd like to do before we finish up today is, if you do have any questions, as I said, put those in for us. But what I'd like everybody to do, because we're very committed to action, is what is one step? What are you going to do this afternoon? What are you going to do tomorrow? What's one thing that you're going to do? What will you try? And so while you're writing those things in, let me just see if Jane has anything else to add. Let's see. Amy, can we unmute Jane?
Yes, we can. Give me 1 second.
There's just so much that could be said about unmuting Jane. As I said it, I realized it was kind of funny.
There we go. Jane is free to be unmuted.
Okay, I don't know if she actually, Jane, I don't know if she has.
She can't be unmuted.
She can't be, is what she's saying, I think.
Okay. Sorry about that, Jane.
All right, so now that will become an even better joke about Jane, but if you have something you want to share, Jane, put it in the chat box. So we have a question, if you have a copy of this presentation, yes. So what we're going to do is it is recorded, and we're going to archive it, and we will send that link out to you. It'll be on it'll be a resource on the ICAPS website, and usually these are housed on the ICSPS website, and I'm saying that as a question to Amy. I'm assuming that it will be.
So what we will do is we'll put the recording, the presentation, as well as all the handouts that are able for you to download, but just in case if you don't get them while we're on here, they'll be on our website, and we will send you out a link following this webinar once everything's posted. I usually do ask for a day or two to get that stuff up, and then we'll have that out to you, and then you can click that link and boom, it's all right there. So yes, everything including the recording is available, as well as the presentation, and we just need to make everything accessible, because that's one of the other fun things that both of our centers are about, is allowing everyone to have access to our information.
We have a question about what's the difference between workforce development classes and ICAPS. And I think that if I'm understanding this correctly, the workforce development department of the college is that, kind of clarify that, whoever asked this question, and we'll see. And so, but what I'm saying is that I know that the College of DuPage actually goes through their workforce development division of their college and works with them for some of an ICAPS Model 2 program. But if you're talking about workforce activities or workplace activities, then there is a difference. It actually is just one of the components of an ICAPS IET program in terms of workplace activities. For workforce development, there are certain classes that can integrate workforce contextualization in a workforce preparation class. So that is a SIP class, like the certain things right there that can integrate those into the workforce prep classes. That's a little bit different from an IET or ICAPS program, because of the fact that you're actually just doing workforce development and workforce prep, which is actually the piece, the second required component. The ABE, ASE, ESL components can be contextualized for a certain career in lieu of that. So as you're looking at that portion of that, you can take the workforce prep pieces of that in a workforce prep class. You can actually take and integrate workforce contextualization in a workforce prep class that can be contextualized for a certain career pathway in an ABE, ASE, ESL classroom. However, that is not in and of itself an ICAPS program, because you're not providing the workforce training component of that. So that's how those differ. If you're just providing workforce prep class, then that can be contextualized to a certain specific career, but it doesn't offer the workforce training component. Therefore, it is not considered an ICAPS IET. Hopefully that clarified that.
Let me just add on to that, because Bevan gave a wealth of information. If you are planning a day, like Angelique, you asked if this would be archived, and the answer is yes. But if you feel that you need some additional support, if you want to help others at your program understand, or help your teachers understand, Bevan and Amy and I are all available, not always available, but we're available to work with you and to schedule a time to where we can hook you up with a mentor. We can clarify or answer questions. We can be available during the time period if we schedule that. So just don't feel like you're out there without any assistance. I want to put another plug in, because I'm not seeing a whole lot of people putting in what their next step is. Maybe your next step is to get all your teachers to sign up next Friday, February 1st at 10 o'clock. The Adult Education Professional Development Network is doing an entire PD day, which there's lots of great offerings, and you can find out about that on the Excellence in Adult Ed website. But Bevan and I are doing one that is about workplace activities, and those are things that all the teachers could be integrating right now. And Amy kind of put up some different information before about critical thinking, about problem solving, about systems. Those are things that students can be learning at every level. So there you go. There's your shameless plug for the next training. That could be a next step. If you have not put in what your next step is, I hope that you're thinking about what your next step is, because we want to make sure that you're moving forward. Here's our contact information. If you need to reach out to any of us, we're happy to. You can go to the ICAPS website, which Amy already put in there. And I'm sorry, at the front was our contact information. So the front slide has our email addresses. If you need anything, give us a call, give us an email, and we'll be glad to help you. We'll stay on for a couple of minutes and see if there's any more questions. Okay.
Sarah,
so
would you like to tell them about the rest of the series? Because we do have,
Yes.
this is not a one-shot professional development. We have several coming up, as well as a Transitions Academy spring session.
Yes, thank you, Amy. But I am going to say Michelle Lyman just shared that Joliet Junior College is taking a trip to Elgin Community College to talk about best practices and IET tomorrow. Yay, Michelle, that sounds great. I hope that goes well. And I think that has been incredibly valuable for programs to go see what somebody else is doing. So as Amy gave me the perfect segue into the Transitions Academy, there is a webinar every month starting in January, the one that's going on right now, through May. Next month on February 28th at 10 o'clock, we will have some best practices, and Dr. Peggy Heinrich from Elgin Community College, which they were one of the original 8 in the Accelerating Opportunity Grant, which was the beginning history of ICAPS in Illinois. So Elgin was a forerunner and have a ton of experience, and Peggy Heinrich will be sharing some a practitioner's guide for IETs. We're also going to be doing some team teaching. We're going to be doing some best practices. So those will all be coming up in the near future, though, like I said, there'll be something in February, March, April, and May. And also, Amy mentioned we have the Transitions Academy spring session, and we're so excited because this year it is actually going to be combined with CTE Perkins meeting, and it's going to be day 2 of the Adult Education Administrators meeting. Information will be coming out very soon, but day 1 will be kind of your traditional Adult Education Administrators meeting, and then day 2 of that will be combined with all the Perkins folks, learning about Perkins 5, learning about some service integration and how that affects ICAPS, and we'll have a lot of good information for you. So there'll be more information coming out for that as well. And we had a question about a certificate or proof of attending the webinar today. If you need that, then I'm going to put my email address right here in the box, and you can email me and I will help you out with that. Okay, so sgoldam@siue.edu, and we'll help you out. And if you don't need that, then that's fine. Don't send it to me because I'll do something else during that time. All right, any other questions or comments for the common good before we take off today? Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for those of you who had comments, and we look forward to hearing from you about what's going on in your program and how we can help you and how you can help other programs. Have a great day.
Thank you also very much. Have a great and safe afternoon. Keep warm.